Good evening. I'm Linda Tiener. I'm the director at UFM Community Learning Center. UFM and the Manhattan Public Library have been sponsoring these talks since about, I don't know, 7, 8 years now. When we started, it was called Talk 20 MHK, and we have changed the name to just be Talk MHK now, which broadens the opportunities. So rather than being on a very structured slide program, they have the opportunity for the speaker to talk from slides, to do a demonstration, to get participation in a much new and different way that I think is going to be very interesting, going to get you more involved in what's happening, and adds a lot of flexibility for the speakers that are here. The point of Talk MHK is to celebrate the diverse people and stories of our community. It builds connections. It lets you find out about things that you may not have known before, be able to explore topics that you already knew a little more in depth, and meet some people in the community who do very interesting and diverse things. We are having both live and Zoom tonight going on, and so I want to welcome all of you to that and appreciate that you came. There will be questions and answers at the end of the programs, not at each speaker, but at the very end. And there will be opportunity for you to write down questions, and we will collect them, and then we will ask the questions to each of the speakers when the whole program is over. If you're on Zoom, please feel free to put that into the chat, and then we'll have that also available for speakers. Okay, so let's get started for the evening, and I want to introduce Eric, the director of the Manhattan Public Library, who's going to introduce the first speaker.
Thank you, thank you. Linda's done this apparently a few more times than I have, so fantastic. I've got a script to read, and I'll be working off that. So thanks for having me, and my name is Eric Norris. I'm the new director here at the Manhattan Public Library. I've been on staff since January 3rd. And it's been a wonderful learning experience so far, and I was really excited to hear about this program and this collaboration with UFM. If you're not familiar with the library, I encourage you to come in and see the new space that we've got down at the front circulation area, and we're gladly welcoming people back after the last 2 years. So, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Deborah Bolton. Dr. Bolton directs intercultural learning at K-State Universities in the Department of Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs and works in geography and geospatial sciences. Her research centers on displaced populations, indigenous education, and geographical distributions of humans, plants, and animals. She also promotes geography and other STEM-related subjects in creating a pathway to STEM for females of color. Tonight, she will tell us a little bit about indigenous histories of the region. Please welcome Dr. Deborah Bolton.
There we go. This is what happens when you have short speakers, because we don't often do well behind podiums. Is that okay? The camera crew and all that. Can you hear me? Okay, I feel like Madonna with this headset on here. You know, it's really important. First of all, say, I'm Deborah Bolton. Guwatsioba. Yinishiye Deborah Bolton. Shie Okeawinge Dine Ute. So I've just told you that I am born to the Okeawinge and the Dine. Those are my mother's tribes. I'm born for them, and to the Ute, my father's tribe. So we usually introduce ourselves that way. And one of the most important reasons I wanted to do this was because, oh, now it's loud, is because people still think that Native Americans are a thing of the past. They don't know that we exist anymore, or they only think of us in terms of feathers and drums and those sorts of things. So tonight, I'm going to tell you my story, and not necessarily the story of all 574 civilized tribes. We became civilized whenever we had treaties with the U.S. Congress. But there are about that many non-recognized, non-federally recognized tribes too. So we have a lot of indigenous people. We were here. We've been on this land for 13,000 to 21,000 years. And you know, people talk about coming across the Bering Strait and all that, but we got here in different ways, 13 to 21,000 years ago. We had a different idea about what it means to be on the land. Very different than what the settlers that came upon us had, because they had more of an idea of ownership of the land, where we used it and we moved before we used it. There's this great writer, he's a U.S. Forest Service writer named Theodore Canton, and he wrote a great book called The U.S. Forest Service and American Indians, I think that's what it's called. But he talks about our farming practices that were not followed by settlers, and he thought if they would have continued with our indigenous traditional practices of how to use the land, we probably wouldn't have had a dust bowl. But that is a complete other story, and I'm probably not going to tell you all of that, but just mostly to tell you that I'm here to speak for myself and not my other tribal members. Before I get started, I like to acknowledge that my people are from what is now New Mexico and what is now Western Colorado, and but I live on the land of indigenous people that are not mine necessarily. So Kansas is currently home to 4 federally recognized tribes: the Sac and Fox, the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo tribe, and the Iowa. I'm grateful to these nations, and I do acknowledge that we are on their land. Just some words that might be of interest. That's called a medicine wheel. It's of our colors. Miatakuya se oyasin, to all my relations. Before we do anything, we always talk about to all my relations, because that's the important thing. Our ancestors and our family are the most important thing to us. Taking that time with them. We have different cultural patterns, so I'll talk a little bit about those. Gawatsi oba is hello. Singitami o is good health. We will always wish you good health. So I'll be talking a little bit about historical context, cultural patterns, my tribe, natives today. We don't always, that would be considered, what I have there is traditional clothing. I didn't wear it tonight. This is my introductory slide that I always do. Our granddaughter, when she was 9, drew that of us. I was excited that she gave me a neck. So that was really cool. But she's off in the back waving, and I was so surprised she put a mission in there. I said, "What made you do that?" She goes, "Well, Grandma, you have pictures of these in your house." And so I just, you know, you never know what your children and grandchildren observe about you. So I always love that picture. It's hanging in our living room. If you think about Native America, we a lot, you know, what we learn in history books, what we learn at school is really settler colonial history. And maybe tribal history is a footnote. Sometimes it's that little box, sometimes it's in the for further reading. But Native or U.S. history is what we are, who we are. We are part of that historical context that started in what we think of in 1776, when in fact started way before that. What is now Spain came to what is now New Mexico in 1535. The Plymouth Rock landing happened when? 1620? So we were this close to being a Spanish-speaking country. If they hadn't have gone south to colonize all the what we know of as Meso, Central, and South America, I'm supposed to stay in one spot, right? Okay. We would have been a Spanish-speaking country, but you can see all of the different tribal people, how we communicated. We didn't always communicate. We had a lot of languages. If you think about 1,000 different tribes, 1,000 different languages in a lot of cases, it's no different than English. The English language is a product of 74 different languages, because language evolves and sometimes language is taken away from some people. And so a lot of us aren't speaking our languages, but they're different. Someone asked me why we didn't all speak the same language. I said, because we're not all the same people. It's like how someone from the South would talk maybe differently from someone from Colorado. We just have different ways that we use the language. So that, and your language is how you transmit your culture. Your language is how you learn your culture. How, you know, where would we be without language? So try to think about what it would be like if you were told you can't speak your language. You have to speak this other language. Think about that. That would kind of mess with your head. This kind of shows you some of the movement. I'm a geographer, so I think a lot about movement of people, how they moved, and this one doesn't show you everything I wanted you to know, but there's movement of people. People constantly move to make their lives better. We don't move just because. We never do. And then this gives you a little bit of a timeline. I talk a lot in my teaching about the history of exclusion, the laws and policies that supported exclusion of people. It went way back to Aristotle, who decided, he wrote the extreme climate theory. One of the people I loved, I studied biology for a while. I used to love Linnaeus. He was the father of binomial nomenclature. However, I was greatly heartbroken in my research to find out that he wrote treatises on natural slaves, saying that anyone that had dark skin was a natural slave. Race is completely a social construct. There's no biological reasoning behind race. As biological organisms, humans are 99% the same genetic code. Where we diverge is our geography. We diverge in language, we diverge in our cultural ways, and everyone has a culture. I have a hard time with my students not knowing that they have a culture. A lot of students don't know that. But anyway, you can see when the Indian Removal Act happened, 1830, that was lovely Andrew Jackson. He was the one that decided we should be moved onto reservations so that the settlers could have land. The Civilization Act of 1819, but you can see all of these things, the Homestead Act, Land Grant Act. We talk about the Land Grant Act. It was supposed to be education for the common man. Think about who the common man was in July of 1862. It wasn't slaves. We were still fighting over owning people. Certainly wasn't natives, so think about who that was. So that was in itself actually an exclusionary law. Tribal protections were actually exclusionary in the sense that, I'll give an example of Oklahoma. When the Osage tribes had a lot of oil, they were given protectors, and that's a whole other story about, you know, wealth in that state. We weren't granted citizenship till 1926. One of the greatest ways for us to show and prove our loyalty to the United States was going to war. So World War II was a big one for natives. My grandmother had her first 4 boys in World War II at the same time. Because it wasn't, I always think when that Saving Private Ryan, I'm going, that never happened. But, well, it may have happened, but not to us. And then right to vote, that was a late one. Colorado, where my parents were living, were able, my father grew up there, not my mother. Well, she did too, yeah. Anyway, my grandmother got to vote for the first time in 1939. And the League of Women Voters came and picked her up. It was actually Arizona that held off for citizenship and voting till 1949. So Colorado was 1938 for voting, the citizenship in 20. And we're still here. And we say that a lot because people still think of us in the past tense. We're still here. And so I'll just kind of pop through these. I realize what. If you think about cultural patterns, the cultural pattern of the dominant population of the United States is individualistic. So stand out, be the best. And I know I'm maybe trivializing that a little bit. But the cultural patterns is very collective. Nobody stands out. Everything is equitable in the way the practices were. You do what's good for the world, not necessarily what's best for you. Just to know. So Okiawingi, that's our first leader who fought against settlers, Popeye, is actually in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. That's where I took that picture. This was just to show you the 8 northern pueblos, of which my mother is one. That's Okiawinge Pueblo. There are 19 pueblos in the state of what is now New Mexico. Our Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland, is from one of the southern pueblos. She's Laguna. Yeah, that's one of the southern. Different languages there. All of the 8 northern pueblos, and pueblos was a name given to us by Spain when they colonized us. And Owinge means the people. They called us pueblos because of the housing structures that we had. But our language is similar. We're Tewa-speaking people and Towa-speaking people, but mostly Tewa, where you would hear Towa more in the southern part. And of course, the Pueblos are descended from the Anasazis. So you can see the similarity in buildings. And this is why Spain called us Pueblos, because of these little communities that they moved us out of when they took over the country. This would be my traditional dress, and one of our dances. All of our dress and our dances have to do with the harvest. So this would be a harvest of vegetables and gardens, and this would be the hunting harvest. And this is what we call fancy dancing when we, it's made some of our tribal regalia. It's a way to just kind of interact with each other. And then there are contests too. One of the most well-known people was the black artist of Maria Martinez and her husband Julian. And these vessels today, it's called monochrome, are priceless. I can't hardly buy them at all. And then I wanted to also show you, I have a friend who is the archivist for the Farmers Union. And so he sends me these all the time. And this was a story about, if only Kit Carson would see what a great job we've done to civilize these savages. So that's that story, kind of bad. And then, of course, you've probably heard of the mascot issue. I put this next one up because someone with a good heart put that up as a poster for our Indigenous Peoples Day. And I said, didn't you have any other updated pictures besides a statue in a museum? She goes, well, I thought all of them looked like that, all of them. I said, no, I'm one of them, and I don't wear that. But that's what we look like. We're scholars, we're a lot of things. We're proud that our children are starting to learn the ways that they had kind of forgotten because of, that expectation of erasure in the schools. And if you Google us, it sometimes comes with things that are, again, show us in history more so than who we are today. And so one of the things I always say is find common ground. Look at a picture like this and try to just think about anything you have in common with these young men. And I bet if you looked at it for a while, you could find things in common with them rather than find what's different. So and then that's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. That was an interesting talk and some really interesting things for us to think about. Our second speaker tonight is Mo Chen. This is the youngest speaker we've ever had. She's a student at Lee Elementary School. She was born in China and moved to Manhattan with her mom last December. She says she loves to travel, and her dream is to see the world and bring the wonders of Chinese culture to others. Her talk about Chinese culture includes a performance with a traditional Chinese instrument. So let's welcome Mo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mo, and I'm 11 years old. I'm in 5th grade, Lee Elementary School. I'm from China, Zhengzhou. It's a beautiful modern city, and it's famous for Shaolin Kung Fu. You have to see a Shaolin Kung Fu show someday. It's very, very cool. This is my first time to come to the United States. I've already been here for about 4 months. My mom came here for her job, and I just came along. We're going to stay here for a year. I've already been to a lot of places like Flint Hills Discovery Center, Manhattan Arts Center, Sunset Zoo, and Manhattan Public Library, of course. This is absolutely one of my favorite places except school. Talking about school, the things are going on really well at school. But as I was about to come, my classmates in China were actually quite worried about me, as they thought I would get double amount of homework from 2 schools. But when I finished my first day of school here, I was told that I have no homework. It is absolutely great. But I know I would get a bunch of homework, more than double in middle school. So I told my classmates about these. They were like, "Can't we switch?" And I found lots of differences between my school in China and my school here. Like, there's 19 people in our class here, but we have 63 in my old class. And in China, when you're having class, you have to sit in a standard position like required. But in here, when you're having class, you can sit in whatever position you want, like even on the floor or on a yoga ball. I sure love those yoga balls. And I found one thing, that I'm really fast at calculating and solving math problems, but actually math is my weakest and least favorite subject. I like all the subjects except math. But here I found lots of confidence for myself, and I started to like math a bit. And I made lots of friends at school. The school stuff is a lot easier with their help. We always play together at recess, and we have a nice time. We always have a nice time at school. And I have lots of hobbies such as reading, drawing, and playing ping pong. But I also love traveling. Actually, this is one of my favorites. When I travel around, I always bring my 2 friends, my Rubik's Cube and these bamboo clappers. The Rubik's Cube can make the journey not so boring, but unfortunately, I lost it on my way here. But I didn't even realize I lost it until my friend mentioned it to me. I was really, really bored of my mind when I was staying in a hotel because we missed the plane from Dallas to Manhattan. So I stayed in the hotel, and I was really bored out of my mind. So I put my Rubik's Cube in a bag of pretzels in the hotel fridge. I want to see what would happen the next morning, but actually I know nothing would happen, but I still did that because I was too bored. But the next morning, when I get up, I started texting my friends and watching things outside and something. And then I forgot about my Rubik's Cube. So when I left the hotel, I did not even realize until my friend said, "Hey, where's your Rubik's Cube? Can you show me how to return that again?" I said, "Oops, I forgot. I left it in the hotel." Now my loved Rubik's Cube is now lying in a hotel fridge, and I hope some kid already found it and loved it, or is still lying there collected by some hotel staff and they got it. I don't know the story after that. So now I'm left with my bamboo clappers, my only friends left. And these are a kind of traditional Chinese art instrument. I started playing them at age of 6. But later on, at about 7, I started playing guitar. I thought the guitar can take the place of these, but it did not, and it'll never. These are usually used to tell stories because it can give different rhythms to the story, can make it fast, slow, or stop it in the middle, make the story very exciting and make everyone focus on the story. But I found some other uses in my daily modern life. Like I can use it to recite poems, read things, or even I can use it to give beats to songs. It's really amazing to use these traditional instruments in modern life. And actually now most kids in China learn instruments like piano and violin and stuff like that. Less and less kids start to learn these traditional things, but I love these traditional things better. First, because they're traditional. I love traditional culture. And second, I think they're really easy to carry around. I don't think you can carry a piano around in your pocket. And I love playing bamboo clappers since I first saw them, and I still love playing them now, or that's why I brought them here, and I play it almost every day. And now I'm going to play my bamboo clappers to express my best wishes for my friends in Manhattan. Thank you for giving me the warmest welcome in December.大竹板响连天，我给大家拜个年。磕头行礼太麻烦，鞠躬礼节不周全，拱手一礼做个揖，来点掌声更美丽。I want some claps, please. 祝大家一帆风顺，二龙腾飞，三阳开泰，四季平安，五福临门，六六大顺，七星高照，八方来财，九九同心，十全十美，百事通通，千事吉祥，万事如意，万事如意。Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. I get nervous when people perform, and you just knocked it out of the park. That was awesome. So thank you very much. Our next guest tonight is Roselle Barreto, a PhD student at Kansas State University. As president of the Philippine Student Association at K-State, Roselle has introduced others to Filipino culture through conversations, parties, and games. He is passionate about exploring and sharing diverse cultural stories, and tonight he will tell us about some of the unique aspects of Filipino culture in a way that show respect and hospitality to others. Please welcome Roselle.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. I am Roselle Barreto. I am a PhD student at Kansas State University, and I came here in Kansas in 2019 as a master's student. And I just finished my master's last semester, and I love K-State so much, so I stayed for my PhD, but in another department. So before I start my presentation, can I just know how many of you have been to the Philippines already, or have some friends with a Filipino descent? Okay, that's a pretty good number. So, for those of you who don't know about the Philippines, this is my country as part of the Southeast Asia, along with Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Timor-Leste. We are one of the largest archipelagos in the world, and our islands are around 7,600 islands, and there are three major geographical areas in the Philippines. We have Luzon, the biggest island in the north. We have a cluster of islands in the middle, which is called Visayas, and at the bottom, we have the island called Mindanao. So a total, there are 17 regions and 81 provinces in the Philippines, and the total land area is about 300,000 square kilometers, or around 115,800 miles. So basically, the Philippines is 33 times smaller than the United States. So, if in the future you are interested to go to the Philippines from Manhattan, Kansas, it would take around, the least amount of time possible is around 25 hours, and it would cover a distance of around 7,600 miles. But geography is not the focus of my speech tonight. So the focus of my speech tonight is how we Filipinos uniquely express our hospitality and respect, especially for the elders. So if you meet a Filipino who recently traveled to the Philippines, if you meet a foreigner who recently traveled to the Philippines, one word always first comes to mind, the word hospitable. The dictionary definition of hospitable is just being friendly and welcoming to strangers or guests. Sounds pretty common, right? So how does the Filipino hospitality differs from the rest of the world? First is the ever-smiling attitude. The guy wearing the yellow shirt is my cousin. He's so fun. So despite our struggles, despite the different natural phenomena that occur in the Philippines, like typhoon, volcanic eruption, earthquakes, we Filipinos always find a reason to smile because we are naturally positive people. We also love to call you ma'am, sir, instead of your first name, because that is one way we show respect, especially to the elders. If you have been to a Filipino family for some festivals or just visiting a friend, there's a good chance that you will be treated like a royalty. Why? Because our parents usually bring out the best plates, the best food when there are guests at home. If there are no guests, we won't have those things. And of course, we, as part of our traditional eating culture, we usually teach you how to use your hands as utensils instead of using spoon or fork. And also after eating, of course, Filipinos love to sing. Even though a lot of Filipinos don't know how to sing, we just love it. We just love it. And instead of saying it as karaoke, we call it as videoke, because videoke is more competitive than traditional karaoke. Why? Because videoke has a score after you sing a specific song. So for example, I sing Star Spangled Banner. And after I sing it, then there will be a score for me within the range of 60 to 100. And usually the highest scorer, the top scorer, wins the pot money for each party. Another thing unique to Filipino is how we show respect. Usually when we meet new people, we show respect by kissing them, or by giving them a cheek to cheek, or by hugging them.
Hi, Grandpa. How are you doing?
Or the classic, how's it going? For us, we have this beautiful tradition called pagmamano. It is where a young person greets an older family member by bowing and placing the elder's hand onto his or her forehead. In return, the elders normally give blessing to the person who's showing the respect. So this tradition is rooted during Spanish colonization, because when the Spaniards was in the Philippines, the natives are showing respect to the priest by kissing their hands. So the term pagmamano came from the root word mano, which means hand in Spanish. And sometimes, instead of saying mano, we just say magbless ka or bless. Now, here's an example of how we conduct this pagmamano thing.
Hi, Mikey! Mano po, Lolo.
Yeah. In that video, Mikey said, Mano po, Lolo. Mano means mano is the gesture of this. This the gesture called mano. And lolo is the Filipino term for grandpa. But notice that there is one word that is added in the sentence, the word po. Which brings me to the next way Filipinos show respect, the use of these words, po, opo, ho, or oho. These words can be either added in the middle of the sentence, like kumain na po ba kayo, which translates to have you eaten yet? Or it can also be added to the end of the sentence, like maraming salamat po, which translates to thank you. So in general, we say opo to say yes to someone older. We say oo to say yes to someone younger. We say hindi po to say no to someone older. And we say hindi to say no to someone younger. So for example, somebody asked me if I've seen Jane, he will definitely ask me this question, nakita mo ba si Jane? And I have 4 different ways of answering that. I can either answer with oo or hindi if that person is younger than me. But if that person is older than me, then I should answer with opo and hindi po. So without using these words, po, opo, ho, and oho, you might be labeled as disrespectful or rude for Filipinos. So the next thing is, we don't practice first name basis, where, especially if we're in conversations. So we normally use these honorifics like kuya for older brother. So for example, I have a brother named Luke. Then I can't call him Luke, just Luke alone. I would either call him Kuya Luke, which translates to brother Luke, or just Kuya, which translates to brother. The same thing goes with ate for older sister, or any stranger who's older than you, and manong for a non-relative old man, manang for a non-relative woman, and for your friend's mother, for your friend's mom, you can just call them tita or aunt. And for your friend's dad, you can just also call them tito, instead of calling them their first name, because calling them with their first name is kind of disrespectful in the Filipino culture. I think that's it for the different ways we Filipinos show respect and hospitality to guests. So right now, I would like to introduce one classic Filipino games that you can administer when you're having a party. The game is called Hep Hep Hooray, or if you're not comfortable saying the word hep hep, you can just say hip hip. That's more common, right? Hip hip hooray. So the game is played like this. Okay. It doesn't need to be that emotional, but that adds fun to the game. So, who want to volunteer? Maybe we can try this one. I need 5 volunteers from the audience, or at least 3. Okay. Rania here. So the rules of the games are simple. You just say hip hip, hip hip, okay, hooray. Yeah, but we need to do it fast. I don't have a microphone with me right now, but let's use this. Okay. That's right. And it's done in succession, like hip hip, hooray. Yeah. So it's always done in succession. So whoever made a mistake gets eliminated until only one person is remain. So let's do it fast. So it should be eliminated right away. But she's a kid, so let's give her another chance. Okay. Hip hip. Then hooray. Okay. Right. Right. Hip. Yeah, a little closer. You guys ready? Right. Right. These 2 remains. So sometimes the game becomes too intense, especially if the players are so great in playing the game. So what we do is we reverse the actions. So we do hip hip and then hooray. And that makes the game more complicated and possibly more fun. So that ends my presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed what I've shown. And if you want to be invited to a Filipino party, here's one Filipino party we conducted last December. See, we have a lot of international friends in the picture because we like having international people, especially trying Filipino foods and trying Filipino games. You can just reach out to me, and yeah, that's it. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I learned a lot, and it was fun to watch the group. And congratulations, Thomas, on being the big winner. We are getting ready for our fourth and last speaker for the evening. And after the speaker finishes, we'll have about 5 minutes for you to write down your questions, and they'll be gathered together so that we can then have a question and answer time that follows. So our final speaker tonight is Doug Barrett. He's an internationally recognized African-American documentary photographer, videographer, and photojournalist. I've heard very good things about him, so I'm looking forward to having him talk to us. You can see some of his work on display locally at the Beach Museum and at 400northcreative.com. He contributes to popular social media sites like Everyday Black America and has been, at Everyday Black America, and has been featured on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square in New York City, as well as other prestigious magazines and newspapers. Doug is currently based in Manhattan, and his talk tonight is about his experience photographing and capturing the stories of people in our region. Come tell us your story, Doug.
Those are some tough acts to follow. So thank you to the Manhattan Public Library for having me. As she read in my bio, I'm a photojournalist. I like to tell stories, and my topic kind of meshes with what everybody talked about tonight. We come from different places, we come from different regions, but one universal thing that I think we all have in common that we can experience from ourselves, our own cultures, our own regions is love. What I'm going to share with you tonight is pretty touching, somewhat emotional, but I met Riley in 2020 at the George Floyd protest in Junction City. The image graced the cover of Time magazine and kind of went viral from there. And one of the things that Riley exuded in the midst of her journey was love. A couple days after I had made the image, I reached back out to her mom to get permission because she was a minor at the time. She's 9 now, she was 7. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And throughout her whole journey of going through cancer treatment, chemotherapy, and radiation, she only cared about one thing, and that was loving everybody else. She had 7 brothers and sisters, and the only thing she wanted to do was ensure that her brothers and sisters were cared for and loved, as well as her community. She didn't want anybody within her community to worry about her. She was tough. She created her own TikTok account, and she began to share her message to help other people. And as a parent for myself, it's probably one of the hardest things I've done. As a photographer, I'm given the honor by people to come into vulnerable spaces and share their story, share their narrative. The work I do is tough, it's hard, because for me it's about the integrity of sharing that moment with that individual, that family, that organization. So I want to share with you Riley's story. I don't know where the desktop is. Oh, here we go. And then the last thing I'll say to that point, the most important thing we can do in the state of where we are as a nation is to constantly be kind, and love everyone because you never know what someone's journey is. So that's Riley's story. She survived her cancer. Her family, her father, still active duty. They've moved. I'm sorry. That's Riley's story. She survived her cancer. She beat her stage 4 cancer. The journey took us from Junction City. The day of her surgery in Kansas City at Mercy, the surgeon broke his hand, and Mom had to use social media to get her enrolled at St. Jude's, where they took her. They were able to remove her tumors. She was 45 pounds at the time, and the tumor was the size of a cantaloupe, they said. So through that journey, through the work that I do, for me it's important to honor families, honor stories, honor narratives. So I think the biggest lesson from all of this is continuing to love our neighbors, regardless of our backgrounds, our nationalities, our decrees of where we come from, geographical regions. The one common thing that we can all have between each other is love. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug. That was very powerful. And I want to thank everybody, all of our participants tonight for tonight's event, and UFM and the library staff for help putting this all together this evening. And we have so much we can learn from each other, and every opportunity gives us all the chances to grow in our knowledge and understanding and to build relationships with others in our community. I think that an evening like this just proves that for me. So at this time, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. And if anybody needs to use the restrooms, they're down the hall and to the left. Please turn in. There's questions that are floating around. We talked about if you have questions for any of the presenters, please grab a sheet and you can write those down. And we'll get those turned into the speakers, and we'll start the Q&A session at a little after 8. How does that sound? And after the speakers have had a chance to answer some of your questions, and we'll end with an informal time where we can encourage you to visit with each other and also visit with the speakers just on a much more informal basis. So thank you much. See you here a little bit after 8.
I have a set of questions here. Do you want to help with the questions, or you want me to do it?
Go for it.
Okay, fine.
I'm going to hand off the microphone first when we got our first
Very
question.
good. Okay, well, the most questions came, surprisingly, to Mo. So, first question, Mo. Can you describe the words of the song that you sang?
Oh, it's just some Chinese words that in number order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100, 1,000, in million, billion to wish you guys good luck.
Well, thank you. The next question is, how high you hold the bamboo clappers affect the way you pinch them? Does it make a difference? Or is there one technique that you use the whole time?
It does not really affect them. It's just some different ways you hold it and some different beats you can use. Like sometimes I hold the big one by just like gripping those like this. But one of the techniques is I use that like putting the thumb in the middle. That can make faster sounds, and with the little one, I can do 1 clip, 2 clips, 3 clips. There are a lot of different things.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more, and then we're going to turn it to somebody else. Well, actually, there's a set here, but I'm going to choose. What surprises you most about the United States?
I don't really sure, but I think it's the buildings, because since I came here and I've never seen a building that is more than 10 floors. But in China, almost every building is like a bunch of floors. Like the apartment I live in has 34 floors, and I live on the 14th floor. I can see the whole neighborhood from outside from my bedroom window because I think yeah, I don't know why the buildings are so short, but yeah, I don't know why.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, being a Kansan. Do you like being able to see the sky and what's going on around you more?
Yeah, I really like seeing what's going around me. Like, I can see what kids are playing downstairs, and if they're my friends, I'll go down and join them too. And sometimes I'll see, oh, is it snowing? If it's snowing, I'll have to rush down and go play, or the snow will be gone because all the children go down and play in the snow, and I can see everything going on. Like my mom returns, my sister returns, something like that.
Having grown up in Kansas, I don't like those tall buildings. I like to see the sky, and I like to see what's going on. So I understand your perspective a little bit. Deborah, I want to turn to you for a question now, and it's about the Manhattan High mascot. The question is, I'm guessing the kids at the steps at the high school are indigenous people. Are their opinions of the high school mascot divided? I don't know more than
Will I
more
get in
context
trouble
than
for
that.
answering?
No, you can say what you want to say. This is a free speech
It's a
zone.
contentious issue. I don't think it is divided. People will use, oh, I have an indigenous friend, and they don't think it's bad, but I don't even know how true those are. I have never met another indigenous person that appreciated being a mascot. So that's about all.
Okay, thank you. That was actually rather diplomatic. Doug, a question for you. How do you continue your work when you come across a heartbreaking story? What thoughts keep you going?
It's about being genuine. I like to keep the integrity in my work, and as I kind of stated, when I'm called to do an assignment or to photograph something, that person is honoring me. So I have to continue to do that through my work. So that's what continues and kind of gives me that passion to do what I do. I love it. So that's kind of what's my motivator.
Okay, thank you. And a question for Roselle. What do you wish more people knew about the Philippines?
What do I wish? Give me a couple of minutes to think.
Sure, go ahead. All right, I've got one more question for Deborah. How about I do her and then come back to you? Okay, Deborah, the question is, how can local community members help the tribes or the indigenous people?
Help them?
Help them.
You know, I think that if you look back, we are a resourceful people. We never needed help. We were displaced. And I think just understanding, not that we need help, we need people to understand our history, to understand that we're still here, and to understand that the settling of what is now the United States took a great toll on us. And we are still here, we're strong, we're resilient. It'd be nice not to have to be, but I would just say do some research and try to understand more about the history and why we are in the situations we are in today. And if you could ever imagine on your own being displaced from where you are, I didn't mean to make everything so sad sounding. I should have brought songs and things, but there's so much that people don't understand. I would say do some research, talk to indigenous people about their stories, because they're all different, and I think the research is an important thing, but asking indigenous, so nothing about us without us.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go back to you, Roselle. And the question was, what do you wish more people knew about the Philippines?
Probably some of the unique spots in the Philippines, especially the tourist spots. We have one of the most perfect volcano in the world, which is the Mayon volcano, which is just 5 hours from where I'm residing in the Philippines. We also have one of the world's smallest volcano on an island, on a volcano, on a volcano. So yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but it's actually a volcano, on another volcano, and on another volcano. Yeah. And also, if you're planning to visit the Philippines, we have lots of food options for you. We have unique food that you may find weird and exotic, that you may find disgusting. But what would I suggest is just try it and see for yourself. And one more thing, Filipinos are very honest people. We have lots of overseas Filipino workers, especially in the United States, in the Middle East. And what they love most about Filipinos is their honesty, especially if they are caring for people or taking care of their houses. Those foreigners love Filipinos because of how honest they are.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just ask, I wasn't told I could do this, but I'm going to anyway. Are there any final questions from anybody in the audience that you want to ask that you were afraid to write down on paper? Anybody on Zoom? We good?
There weren't any questions on Zoom, but there were several people who, it may have got lost in the paper, wanted to know, Mo, if you learned English before you came here, how did you learn to speak English so well?
Thank you. I was going to get to that.
Yeah, of course I learned English before I came here because it's just a preparation. I have to prepare myself. I started to learn English at school since 3rd grade because our school gives English classes since 3rd grade. But I actually started learning English since I'm really little, like 2 or 3. I started reading English books with my mom, and I can speak really well. It's all because of my mom. When the other kids are watching some other funny things, she gave me some English things, and I always hear English, and I just I learn. I just like mimicking those people in the video, and I just feel like practice every day. And sometimes I find some flashcards in my house, and I ask my mom, "What is this?" And my mom says, "Oh, that's the flashcard I made when you're little to help you know the letters." So if you want to know why did I speak really well, don't ask me. Ask my mom. My mom is the nicest teacher.
Well, thank you, Mom. Yes.
Can I promote an event at K-State?
Sure, go ahead.
So since Sunday, we are having an international week at K-State, and I am part of the International Coordinating Council. So we already had our international fashion show, dance lessons, panel discussion, and then just this morning we had our cultural exhibition, and there are lots of countries participating. So our final event will be the International Fashion Show, International Talent Show, thank you for that, which will happen on Saturday at 6 p.m. in the K-State Student Union Forum Hall. So it's free for all, and there are lots of performances from different countries. If you are interested to attend that. And all of you, it's a free event, so it's the final event of this year's International Week, and I hope I will see familiar faces from here.
Well, I want to thank everybody for presenting and coming tonight, and I think, Eric, you are scheduled to wrap us up.
Yep, I just want to, again, thank all of our presenters and thank the audience for coming and joining us this evening. And this was a wonderful introduction for me to the to the library and the community here. So thank you very much. We also have surveys. If you could, if you were in the crowd, if you would fill out a survey for us, it helps us to work on programming and make sure that we're moving in the right direction with a lot of that. And I want to remind everybody to check out not only the library's website, but also UFM's website for upcoming events and classes and other programs like that. And thanks again, and feel free to stick around and engage in the conversation a little bit more. Thank you much.